What do you do when you've made mistakes that can't be undone? When you've tricked people, hurt people, and now you're running from the past? That's where we meet a man named Jacob. His name means heel grabber or trickster. And from the moment he was born, that's who he was. Always grabbing, always wanting more. He came into the world holding on to his brother's heel, as if he couldn't wait to be first. He grew up learning how to get what he wanted, not with strength, but with cleverness. He tricked his brother out of a birthright. He lied to his blind father to steal a blessing, and when things got dangerous, he ran. But here's the incredible part. God didn't leave him. Even when Jacob was alone in the wilderness, God showed up in a dream. He spoke promises of blessing, protection, and love. Not because Jacob had earned them, but because God had already chosen him. Still, Jacob spent years hiding, working, growing, and struggling. Until one night, everything changed. On the way home to face his past, Jacob found himself alone, in the dark, afraid, and then a stranger appeared. They wrestled all night, this mysterious figure and Jacob, locked in a struggle that felt more spiritual than physical. And just before morning, Jacob realized something. He wasn't wrestling a man, he was wrestling God. This is the story of a man who wouldn't let go until he was blessed. A man who walked away with a limp and a new name. This is the story of Jacob. And if you've ever felt like you've messed up too much to be loved, if you've ever wrestled with fear, guilt, or doubt, then maybe this story is for you too. Before Jacob was ever born, God already knew his story. It all began with two brothers, twins actually. Their parents were Isaac and Rebekah. Rebekah became pregnant after many years of waiting. But from the start, something felt strange. The babies inside her were moving, fighting, even in the womb. She could feel the struggle before she ever saw their faces. So she prayed and asked God, "Why is this happening to me?" And God answered, "Two nations are in your womb, two people divided from birth. One will be stronger, but the older will serve the younger." When the twins were born, Esau came out first. He was red and hairy, strong-looking like a wild animal. But right behind him came Jacob, gripping Esau's heel. Even at birth, Jacob was trying to catch up, trying to hold on. That's how he got his name. Jacob means grabs the heel, or supplanter, someone who takes someone else's place. From the very beginning, Jacob was reaching for more. As they grew, the differences between the two boys became clear. Esau loved to hunt. He was outdoorsy, rough, and bold. Jacob stayed close to the tents. He was quiet, thoughtful, and clever. Isaac, their father, loved Esau the most because he brought him wild meat. Rebekah, their mother, loved Jacob. That kind of favoritism caused division. And deep inside, Jacob started to crave something that didn't belong to him. He wanted the birthright. He wanted the blessing. He wanted to be chosen. Jacob was born holding a heel, but really, he was reaching for something more. Identity, favor, love. And this longing would shape his entire life. One day, something happened that would change the lives of both brothers forever. Esau had been out hunting in the fields. The sun was hot, the air was dry, and he hadn't eaten all day. He came home exhausted, hungry, tired, and desperate. As he walked into the camp, the smell hit him. Jacob was cooking stew, thick red lentil soup, hot and ready. And in that moment, that bowl of food felt like the most important thing in the world. "Let me have some of that red stew," Esau said. "I'm starving." Jacob didn't say yes right away. He saw an opportunity. So he made an offer. "Sell me your birthright." Now, in that time, the birthright wasn't just about money. It meant being the head of the family after the father passed. It meant receiving a special blessing and inheritance. It meant God's promises. It was sacred, holy, a gift given to the firstborn son. But Esau didn't care. "I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is a birthright to me?" So he made the trade. He gave up his birthright for a bowl of soup and some bread. Jacob got what he wanted. Esau got full, but only for a moment. And just like that, something priceless was traded for something temporary. Jacob was clever, but he was also manipulative, and Esau was careless. He gave up something eternal for something immediate. It's a strange story, but one we can still learn from today. Because sometimes we all get hungry for the wrong things. We choose what feels good right now and forget what matters forever. Jacob's hunger was for power and blessing. Esau's hunger was for food and comfort. But neither of them realized that real blessing only comes from God, not from taking or trading. This wasn't the end of their story, just the beginning of a deeper conflict. And Jacob's next move would take things even further. Years passed, and Isaac, Jacob and Esau's father, grew old. His eyes became weak, and he couldn't see anymore. He knew his time on earth was almost done, and he wanted to give Esau, his firstborn, a final blessing before he died. In those days, a father's blessing wasn't just words, it was powerful. It passed on God's promises, it confirmed leadership, it couldn't be taken back. So Isaac called Esau and said, "Go hunt wild game for me. Make me the food I love, then I'll bless you before I die." But Rebekah was listening. She remembered what God had told her before the twins were born, that the older would serve the younger, and she believed that the blessing should go to Jacob. So she came up with a plan. She told Jacob, "Go get 2 goats. I'll cook them just like your father loves. You'll bring the food to him and pretend to be Esau." Jacob was nervous. "But Esau is hairy and I'm not," he said. "If father touches me, he'll know I'm lying. He might curse me instead." But Rebekah insisted. She dressed Jacob in Esau's clothes. She covered his arms and hands with goat hair, and she handed him the plate of food. Jacob walked slowly into Isaac's tent. "Who are you, my son?" Isaac asked. "I am Esau, your firstborn," Jacob lied. Isaac was confused. "How did you hunt so fast?" Jacob replied, "God gave me success." Isaac reached out and touched his arms. The hair felt right. The smell of the clothes smelled like Esau, so Isaac believed him. And then he gave the blessing. A blessing meant for Esau, a blessing full of power and promise. Jacob got what he wanted, but it didn't bring peace. Moments later, Esau returned with his meal. He went into the tent, smiling, ready for the blessing, only to find out it was already given. Esau cried out in pain, "Bless me too, father. Don't you have anything left for me?" But the blessing couldn't be undone. Esau's cry turned to rage. He vowed to kill Jacob. And once again, Jacob had to run. Jacob was now a man on the run. His brother Esau wanted to kill him. His home was no longer safe. So Jacob left everything behind, his family, his comfort, his past, and walked alone into the wilderness. He walked for miles under the hot sun. His feet ached, his heart was heavy. He was tired, afraid, and uncertain of what would happen next. And when the sun went down, Jacob found a place to sleep. No tent, no blanket, just a rock for a pillow and the cold ground beneath him. That night, something extraordinary happened. Jacob had a dream. He saw a ladder stretching from the earth all the way up into heaven. And on that ladder, angels were going up and down, moving between the sky and the earth like messengers on a mission. At the very top of the ladder stood God, not far off, not angry, not hidden, but right there speaking to Jacob. And God said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac. The land you are lying on, I will give it to you and your descendants. I am with you. I will watch over you wherever you go, I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I promised." Can you imagine that? Jacob had just lied, stolen, run away. He had done so much wrong, and yet God still met him, not to punish, but to promise. When Jacob woke up, he was filled with awe. He said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't even know it." He took the stone he had slept on, stood it upright, and poured oil on it. Then he named the place Bethel, which means house of God. In the middle of the wilderness, in the middle of his fear, God found Jacob and reminded him, "You are not alone." That night, Jacob didn't just dream of heaven. He discovered that heaven was closer than he thought. Many years passed. Jacob had grown older. He had wives, children, servants, and flocks. He had worked hard for everything he owned. He had become a father, a leader, even a wealthy man, but there was something he hadn't done. He had never gone back home. He had never faced Esau, his brother, the one he tricked, the one who wanted to kill him. One day God spoke to Jacob again. "Go back to the land of your fathers, and I will be with you." It was time. Jacob packed everything, his wives, his children, his animals. He gathered his whole household and began the long walk back. But with every step his heart beat faster. What if Esau was still angry? What if he came with weapons? What if Jacob lost everything? So Jacob came up with a plan. He sent gifts ahead, herds of animals, spaced out in waves. Goats, camels, sheep, bulls. Each group carried a message. "These are a gift for Esau from your servant Jacob." He hoped the gifts would soften Esau's heart. Then Jacob prayed. He reminded God of the promise. "You said you would make my family great. You said you would be with me. Please, Lord, protect me from Esau." And then Jacob did something strange. He sent everyone else ahead, his family, his servants, his animals, but he stayed behind, alone. It was quiet. The stars filled the sky, and the past was closing in on him. Jacob had spent most of his life running, from his brother, from conflict, even from who he really was. But now, there was nowhere else to run. Only a long night ahead. And something or someone was coming to meet him. Many years passed. Jacob had grown older. He had wives, children, servants, and flocks. He had worked hard for everything he owned. He had become a father, a leader, even a wealthy man. But there was something he hadn't done. He had never gone back home. He had never faced Esau, his brother, the one he tricked, the one who wanted to kill him. One day, God spoke to Jacob again. "Go back to the land of your fathers, and I will be with you." It was time. Jacob packed everything, his wives, his children, his animals. He gathered his whole household and began the long walk back. But with every step, his heart beat faster. What if Esau was still angry? What if he came with weapons? What if Jacob lost everything? So Jacob came up with a plan. He sent gifts ahead, herds of animals spaced out in waves. Goats, camels, sheep, bulls. Each group carried a message. "These are a gift for Esau from your servant Jacob." He hoped the gifts would soften Esau's heart. Then Jacob prayed. He reminded God of the promise. "You said you would make my family great. You said you would be with me. Please, Lord, protect me from Esau." And then Jacob did something strange. He sent everyone else ahead, his family, his servants, his animals. But he stayed behind, alone. It was quiet. The stars filled the sky, and the past was closing in on him. Jacob had spent most of his life running, from his brother, from conflict, even from who he really was. But now, there was nowhere else to run. Only a long night ahead, and something, or someone, was coming to meet him. The night was still. Jacob stood alone by a river called Jabbok. He had sent his whole family ahead. He was tired, nervous, and about to face the brother he once betrayed. And that's when it happened. A man appeared, suddenly, silently, and without a word, they began to wrestle. It wasn't a quick fight. It lasted all night long. They struggled in the dirt. They pushed, grabbed, fell, rose again. Neither one gave up. Jacob didn't know who the man was at first, but something was different about him. He was strong, stronger than anyone Jacob had ever faced. Yet there was something holy about him too. As the night dragged on, Jacob refused to stop. Then, just before sunrise, the man did something incredible. He reached out and touched Jacob's hip. Just one touch, and it popped out of place. Jacob was in pain. His body gave out, but his hands didn't let go, even with a limp, even with tears. Jacob held on, and he cried out, "I won't let go unless you bless me." The man looked at Jacob and asked, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered, the name that meant trickster, deceiver, heel-grabber. And the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with people, and you have overcome." Then the man blessed him, and just like that, he was gone. Jacob stood there in the early light, limping, hurting, breathing hard, but he was changed. He named that place Peniel, which means face of God, because he said, "I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Jacob had spent years running, lying, pretending, but in one long night, wrestling in the dark, he came face to face with the one who loved him most, and he didn't leave with shame. He left with a blessing and a new name. The sun began to rise, the stars faded, the sky turned soft and gold, and Jacob, limping, tired, forever changed, walked forward. But he wasn't the same man who had crossed the river the night before. Something inside him had shifted. He had a new name, no longer Jacob, the deceiver, the runner, the one who tricked and grabbed. Now he was Israel, which means one who wrestles with God. It wasn't just a name change, it was an identity change. God was telling Jacob, "You're not who you used to be. You don't have to fight for love anymore. You don't have to pretend. I see you. I've blessed you, and I'm giving you a new beginning." Every step Jacob took after that hurt. His hip never healed. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. But that limp was more than an injury. It was a reminder that he had met God, that he had wrestled and survived, that his strength didn't come from tricking or running, but from holding on. When he finally saw Esau, something even more amazing happened. Esau didn't attack him. He didn't shout. He ran to Jacob and hugged him. The two brothers wept together. The thing Jacob had feared for so long, the anger, the revenge, the punishment, didn't happen, because God had gone ahead. God had softened Esau's heart. And Jacob, now Israel, could finally breathe again. He had faced his past. He had wrestled with his pain, and now he walked forward in peace. Sometimes God changes us in a moment. Sometimes he changes us through the night. But when he does, he always gives us a new name. Not the name the world gives, but the one he chooses for us. Jacob became Israel, and Israel became a people, a family, a nation, a part of God's great story. Jacob's life was messy. He lied, he tricked his brother, he ran from his problems. He didn't always trust God. He hurt others and got hurt too. But here's the most important part of his story. God never gave up on him. Even when Jacob was at his worst, God was still writing his story. Even when Jacob was running away, God was running after him. And even when Jacob was wrestling in the dark, God was blessing him. That's the kind of God we serve. Not a God who waits for us to be perfect, but a God who meets us in the middle of our mess and says, "I'm not done with you yet." We all have moments when we feel like Jacob. We want something so badly we grab for it the wrong way. We try to control everything ourselves. We hide from our mistakes. We wrestle with fear, with guilt, with our past. But Jacob's story reminds us, you can be broken and still be blessed. You can limp and still move forward. You can wrestle with God and still be loved. God didn't choose Jacob because he was strong. He chose him because Jacob wouldn't let go. And that's all God asks of us sometimes. To hold on, even when it's hard, even when we don't understand, even when everything in us wants to give up. Jacob's new name, Israel, became the name of a nation, a people chosen by God, a family that Jesus himself would one day be born into. So when you feel like you're too far gone, too flawed, too tired, remember Jacob. Remember the boy who grabbed his brother's heel, the man who slept with a stone for a pillow, the wrestler who walked away with a limp and a blessing, and the truth that still whispers to us today: you are not forgotten, you are not too broken, and if you just hold on, God will meet you right where you are.